Hello everyone and welcome to the class. This is David A. Cox with PCClassesOnline.com, and today we are talking about iOS 8 for the iPad. This class that you're about to see was actually taped live. If any of you out there would ever like to attend our live classes, we are a completely free public service. You can find out everything, of course, on our website at PCClassesOnline.com. So let's get started. Here is new to iOS 8. Hello everyone and welcome to the class. This is David A. Cox with PCClassesOnline.com, and today we are talking all about the brand new operating system for the iPad. This is iOS 8. One of the things I tend to like to mention during our classes is the date, just to keep things relevant. Today is Saturday, September 20th of 2014. So a lot of the features that you see here as of today's date just came out a few days ago, and so we're going to get people all up and running. So if you have an iPad, or if you just bought an iPad that came with iOS 8, I want to show you all the new features to help you get the most out of your little gadgets. Now, before we actually begin here, I just want to give a couple quick tips of advice for anyone out there who has not yet upgraded to iOS 8. It is really important no matter what device you have, whether it's a phone, a tablet, and eventually this also applies to the computer. Anytime you upgrade an operating system, it is very important that you back up your data first, because if, God forbid, something goes wrong, you do want to make sure that you are protected against whatever. If you get file corruption, you want to make sure you're okay. Other piece of advice is that the best way to upgrade your iPhone or your iPad to iOS 8 or future updates as they come up is to actually use your computer. Because here's what happens. If you go through your iPad to get the upgrade, you have to have a lot of space available, because while you're running the previous operating system, you're trying to download the next operating system. So before it can clear out the old, you still have to download the new. So if you go through your computer, you bypass that. So a lot of people are wondering, why is it so much better to use your computer? That's the reason why. Your computer can be the one to receive the new operating system, and it kind of handles everything. Just make sure you don't accidentally unplug it in the middle, because that is not good. Also, a little tip, if you can, when you go to do that kind of an upgrade, try not to use a DSL connection. It's just not great. The slower your internet speed is, the higher your chances of data corruption tend to go up. So let's get started here. We're going to go over a lot of the new features. This is not the same as our new to iPad class. I want to make that clear. We are just going over the new features here. So let's get started. We're going to go actually and start off with settings, because a lot of the new features have places here in settings. And by the way, I should mention, you are occasionally going to see an email address pop up in my iPad. I created recently a new email address, which I purely use for demo purposes, so please don't get any funny ideas. I don't actually use it. It's just for this class. So the first place that we're going to go is actually, well, where we are right now, which is in the general settings. And the first feature I want to turn you on to is the third item down, which is here in Siri settings. So here in Siri settings, you'll see that there's this new feature. I'm going to use my cursor for a moment, called Hey Siri. And just by that, you can probably figure out what it does. So what Hey Siri does, that way I don't activate it right now, is if you have your iPad plugged in and receiving power, and you say the words Hey, and then Siri, you will automatically activate Siri. You don't have to touch the iPad at all. It's just all automatic. So even if it's sitting on a bookshelf charging, you can still use Siri. And by the way, one little trick I want to give you, you don't have to pause and wait for that little beep. You can just start talking. So for example, if I say, Hey Siri, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?
Expect rainy weather tomorrow.
Damn, okay. That was kind of a wah, wah, wah moment. So that's a new little feature. Let's go back a screen. The next feature here, can't really show you right now, is called Handoff and Suggested Apps. What this does is it allows you to start working on something on one device and pick up where you left off on a different device. So for example, you could start composing an email on an iPhone and then switch over to your iPad, or go from one device to your Mac. It's pretty cool. We'll demo that a lot more as soon as Yosemite comes out, which as of today's date, it has not yet come out. So let's move on to the next feature, which is, let's see here, the next item I want to go over is actually keyboards. We did not go over this in the last class because the last time I don't think I had any installed. If you scroll down here in General Settings, you'll see that we have Keyboard. So one of the new features in iOS 8 is you have multiple keyboards that you can use. And I want to show you just two of them that I downloaded. There's probably going to be a lot more coming out soon. Again, as of today's date, iOS 8 has only been out for, I think, 3 days? So there has not been a lot of time for people to get new apps out there. So I'm going to go into keyboards here at the top, and you'll notice that I have a total of 4 different keyboards. I'm going to show you how to get additional keyboards and just kind of how to switch back and forth between them. I think I'm going to cover that actually when we're done with settings, but I did want you right now just to see where you're going to go to configure these options. It's in General, and in General it's in Keyboards. So we'll go over that in just a little bit. Let's see. Another feature here is you'll notice that we have display and brightness. Okay, for those of you out there who have maybe a little bit of trouble with your vision, you notice that we have text size here now, so you can make all of the text bigger or smaller. It doesn't apply to every single piece of text in the iPad. It technically is the dynamic type. We don't need to go into detail about what that is, but it's the main print that you're going to see in the iPad. So you can just use this little slide bar, and you'll notice that everything gets smaller or larger as I move my finger up and down that slide bar. You can also make all of the text bold. One thing to note, if you turn that feature on, it is going to reboot your iPad. And since we're live right now, we have an audience, by the way, tuning in. I can't quite do that at this moment. Next feature we're going to go over is wallpaper. Pretty simple feature, but they always tend to give you new wallpaper, as they come out with new operating systems. This is the one that I'm using right now. One little tip I'm going to give you, all of you, is I always like to do a video when a new operating system comes out on how to save battery life on your device. Now, this is not as critical on an iPad because the battery in the iPad is so much bigger compared to something like an iPhone. That being said, if your iPad is maybe older and it has a little bit more wear and tear, one trick that you can use to help save a little bit is when you go into your wallpaper, you see this down here at the bottom right, it says perspective zoom. Okay, you might want to turn that feature off. Again, if your battery is low. If not, probably don't worry about it. Hit cancel for now. And to show you those various, choose a new wallpaper, stills. There's just kind of an example of some of the new wallpaper images they give you, and also the older ones left over from iOS 7 are still there. Another little tip, don't use dynamic. It's just not a good idea. Dynamic really eats away at your battery life, so I tend to recommend that you go with still. Next feature we're going to talk about is we're going to go into iCloud. Again, this is the fake account. Ignore the email address. For those of you who don't get the address, by the way, it says P-Town Drone Boy. One of my little hobbies, it tends to pop up at some point in the classes. I'm a drone pilot, so I photograph Cape Cod from the sky. It's pretty cool. If you ever want to see any of my little videos that I've done, they're all accessible through our YouTube page, which is just youtube.com/Tech Talk America. That's actually the official name of PCClassesOnline.com. Long story behind that name. So here in iCloud, you'll see one of the first items we have here is family sharing. And really, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is designed for families. Now, for those of you mom and dads out there, make sure you're aware of this. This means that anything that anyone in your family buys is going on your credit card. So make sure of that. So let's say, we'll just use the classic example. Say you've got mom, dad, and a couple of kids. If the kids have iPhones, they can make purchases. And one of the nice features for security-wise, the parents have, is if the kids try to buy something, it sends a notification to mom or dad's cell phone, or theoretically iPad too, where they can approve the purchases. So the kid can make the request, but in order to get it, the parent has to approve it. Also, it allows you to share things like music, movies, books, some apps. Also, I love this feature here. Let's say everyone goes on a road trip, maybe a family vacation to Cape Cod, here where we're based out of. Everyone can have their own devices, shoot their own photos, but it all goes into one common photo album. That's another pretty cool feature. Another security feature for parents, you can share location. So let's say Susie lost her iPad. Mom can use the Find My iPhone feature. Technically, it's called Find My iPhone, even though it is an iPad, or whatever the device is, rather, and use the GPS features and try to figure out where it is. So that's another feature. And another handy one right here is you can have a family calendar. So if everyone has their own schedules, it'll just bring everyone's calendars all together so that everyone knows where everyone is at one time. Next feature here, I'm mentioning with a little warning, especially to those of you who are here live right now, which is iCloud Drive. I have made the recommendation, do not use iCloud Drive until Yosemite comes out. Long story, we don't need to go into it. But what iCloud Drive does is really, it's very similar, ironically, to Dropbox or Google Drive for that matter. It's like a folder, and anything you store in that folder, you can now pull up on any computer. It's pretty cool, or device. So ultimately, we're going to do an entire class on iCloud Drive once it really comes out. This is sort of like a beta right now, in the way that it's set up now. But it'll allow you to save documents to the cloud, so you don't have to worry anymore about where is my document. You just go to whatever device is most convenient, and you can pull it up. That's part of what Apple is introducing continuity, is so that you can have this seamless transition between all of your various devices. The other features here are pretty, they're all the same that they've been since it came out. Another feature here you'll notice at the very bottom is a Share My Location feature. I have mixed feelings on this one. I think it's great for parents, if you've got kids, to use this feature because, this could definitely be the kind of technology that, hey, it could save a kid's life if there was a kidnapping situation, something like that. It could also be misused. So I have mixed feelings on this one. As long as everyone knows that it's there, yeah, that's what I'll say on that. Another feature I will say about iCloud Drive, real briefly, is the way that they deal with storage. So everyone gets 5 gigabytes free. It's like Oprah. You get 5 gigs. You get 5 gigs. Everybody gets 5 gigs. But if you want more than 5 gigs, you can pay for it. And what's nice with this is that it is very, very affordable. So to go 4 times as large, to go to 20 gigabytes, it's $1 a month. 200 gigabytes is $4 a month. 500 gigabytes is $10 a month. And for those of you e-hoarders out there, 1 terabyte is $20 a month. Still not that bad. And when you compare that to Dropbox's pricing, I think Dropbox is going to have to change their pricing if they haven't already done so, because that kicks their butts. I think that's all. I'm just going through my notes here. I wanted to say about iCloud Drive. The next feature that we're actually going to go over here. Oh, I do want to bring this up real quick, and I think I'm going to have to blur this feature out maybe when we go to post-production on this video, is if you have an iPad and you also have an iPhone, one of the new features is that if you get a phone call on your phone, you can actually answer it now on your iPad. You can also place phone calls from your iPad. So let's pray that it doesn't flash my phone number across the screen. We're going to go into FaceTime settings. Well, sort of. So you'd have to have this set up on both devices. It's not having the accurate information because this has my dummy information loaded into it. But with this feature, you would have an extra option that says basically turn on cellular calling. So you just turn that on your iPad as well as your iPhone, by the way. And then you'll be able to accept and place phone calls from your iPad. Pretty cool feature. Let's get out of settings here. The next feature we're going to talk about is Spotlight. Now, to get into Spotlight, for those of you who are not aware, you're going to just take your finger on your screen and just drag down. Now, note, not from the tippy top. That's something different. So maybe just here in the middle of the screen and just swipe down and you launch Spotlight. Now, Spotlight in the past has given you the ability to search for different items that are on your iPad, like contacts and email, etc., apps. But now you can go beyond it. You can now search for example, let me get into my list of items. You can search for apps that are in the App Store, like as in items that you don't have. You can search for music that's available in the iTunes Store. Let's say you want to go see a movie. You can search for a movie and it will figure out basically what movie theater is near you that has it, so you can find out all of the showtime information. Where I live, we only have one movie theater. It has two movies, and I don't know which either of them are, so I can't really demo that part for you today. It also talks to maps. So this is really handy if you need a phone number. So let's say I want to, like tonight, I'm going out. My parents are actually visiting today. We're going to go out for dinner to this little place in town called the June Bar. So I can type Joon. Actually, I don't know if they're listed. They're brand new restaurants, so that was probably a really horrible example. But you would type in a restaurant, something like that. Let me type in... So this is a little pizza joint down the street from us. So I could type in the name of the pizza joint, and I have their address and phone number information right there. Pretty simple. It's also really handy if Surrey, sometimes Surrey works, sometimes it doesn't work, depending on how overloaded their servers are at that moment. But that seems to work pretty quickly, regardless. So if you don't want to wait for Surrey, that's another way to get access to the same data. So that's about that for that aspect of Spotlight. Next feature we're going to go over is photos. So let's go into photos. We'll use this one. I just snapped this one. We have a little pear tree in our yard. And so far we've gotten 120 pounds of pears. So if any of y'all want pear pie, swing by. So anyways, there's a whole bunch of new editing features where you can modify how the image looks without having to go into anything like Photoshop. So to do this, we're just going to tap on the screen and tap Edit there at the top right corner. Okay, and actually what I'm going to do at this point, just adjusting a few things on my desk. I'm going to move this into landscape mode, a little bit easier. So if you notice over here on the right-hand side, we have a bunch of little tools over here. The first one we have is a little magic wand icon. That's just basically the same thing as autofix on the Mac in iPhoto. So it's just going to kind of see what it thinks is going to make it look a little better. Usually this just adds a little bit of saturation to your image, but that's about it. Next item we have here is crop, and there are a couple of new crop tools. Well, one. So if I wanted to crop this, of course I could just use my fingers and pinch to zoom in. Okay, so if I really just want to focus on the actual pears there, I could do that. And theoretically then I'd hit done at the top right corner and it would do that. But what if when I took this photo it was a little askew? It wasn't quite lined up. Well, now there is a way that you can modify this image, sort of just like you can in iPhoto. See that little dial over here on the right hand side? This is your rotation options now. So you can use your finger and just swipe up and down. Oops, sorry. There we go. And it'll rotate your image. Typically, I actually shoot a lot of landscape photography, and so I usually use the horizon as my guide for this. And then when I'm done, I just hit done up there at the top right, and it will lock it in. Let's go back into edit. Next feature we have here is filters. Those haven't actually changed. Those are pretty much the same thing as they were before. You get these little kind of preview images on the right hand side so you can see what it will look like. So if I want to give this a noir effect, with one tap I can see how that makes it look. Go into Chrome. Chrome kind of makes it all, really ups the saturation more than anything. Process, transfer, a whole bunch of different options there. I'm just going to revert it to the original. Next feature we have is this little dial, and this is a new option here. So this allows you to change the lighting, color, and black and white options for your photo. So let's start off with lighting. I'm going to tap on that, and you'll see I have a little slide bar here on the right hand side. Again, it's giving me a preview of what it will look like if I adjust it. So if I drag it down a little bit, it's going to darken everything. Okay. When I'm done with that, I'm going to go into color. So in color options, again, you're adding saturation or removing saturation. So all those colors are going to really pop. Be careful about adding too much saturation, because then when you happen to do that, if you look over here, white tends to turn blue. It's a really easy way to identify a photo that's been overcorrected. Then when you drag down, you desaturate your image. Final option we have here, I'm going to go back. By the way, little note. See the little gray dot right here on the side? That shows you where your original settings are. So if you just go back there, it'll kind of snap into place. Oops, there we go. Snaps into place, that's your original right there. Now let's go into black and white options. This is really cool, actually. So this is going to change the whites, the blacks, and the grays in the image. So you get all these different black and white versions of your image. And I love the way some of these come out. I mean, it's really artistic. See, it's just as I slowly move, it's just changing how all of those look. Like that right there is kind of cool. Very creepy, end of the world-esque, but anyways, that's that. That's a little bit of the photo features for that part. Let's get out of that. The next thing we're going to go over is we're going to go into the camera options. Now, my iPad is right now on my desk, so you're not going to see anything special. Yep, there's my red cover. Woohoo! That's okay, it's just distracting anyways. So the first thing I want to do is show you a new feature of photography that you can do. Now this is going to be hard to do with an iPad unless you have some sort of a tripod mount for your iPad, whether it's a special tripod for your iPad or just an attachment that goes onto a normal tripod. But you'll notice over here on the right hand side, if you swipe your finger up and down, you get these different options. So right now I just swiped down, I went into video mode, and there's this new feature called time-lapse mode. It's really, really cool. I tested this the other day. For any of you out there who follow me on Facebook, you probably saw the resulting image, but it's really, really cool, especially on something like the iPad Air, where you've got a really decent camera attached to your device. You just basically hit this little red button, and it will figure it out. You just let it sit. Usually, you need to really let it sit for at least 5 minutes or so. And it will just automatically start taking photos, and when you're done, it takes a couple of minutes to process the image, but it'll turn it into video, but it'll be time-lapse photography. It's a really, really cool feature. A lot of fun to show off. And I will say this, when I shared that on Facebook, it got noticed by quite a few friends. Time-lapse is really amazing how it's evolved. You know, it used to be this really complicated process, you know, where you have to go through images after images after images, and then you'd have to bring it into QuickTime, and oh, it was a nightmare. Now you can just do it from your iPhone or iPad. It's really amazing stuff when you think about it. The next feature we're going to talk about, I'm actually going to go back to photos, has to do with social sharing. So if you look here at the bottom left corner, we have the little social share button down here. And one of the features you'll notice, it's a little bit different, is we have a little bit more than just the standard messages, mail, Facebook. Okay, so first of all, you can add in additional apps now, and we're going to get more into that in just a little bit. But what I want to show you here is what if you don't use one of these services? Like, for example, I don't use Flickr. I don't use Twitter. You'll notice you don't even see Twitter anymore. Here's how you can modify this feature. See where it says More? We're going to go into More, and you can see all of your different options. So if you don't use Twitter, you can turn Twitter off. But let's say maybe you use Facebook a lot. Not only can you turn it on, but you can also move its position. So I can grab these, see these 3 little bars here to the right? I can drag that to the top of the list. And if you actually look behind this screen, you'll notice that Facebook here is now in the #1 position. It also talks to other apps as you install them. So just before this class, to demo a feature that we have coming up, I put LinkedIn here. Okay, I downloaded that. I don't really use LinkedIn. Some people do. I personally don't, but that became now a feature. I can now share it to these different social services out there. So that's that. Let's see. Next feature, we're going to talk a little bit about iMessaging. Now, this feature, we've had pretty much no disasters while I've done this live, and we're going to hope that it works okay today. So all these people who you're about to see have been briefed that I was going to be doing this feature, so I'm not going to be disturbing them. So if you go into a message, okay, you'll see that we have immediately a few new features here. The first one we're going to talk about is voice memo, and that is right here on the right-hand side. And yes, that microphone is different from this microphone, which we'll talk about in a moment. So with this microphone, the way it works is if you press and hold on it, you're going to keep your finger still. It's going to start to record your voice. So in this case, this is Chip Capelli that I'm having a conversation with. For those of you who maybe find that name familiar, if you've seen our series on QuickBooks, that is the same Chip Capelli. So if I want to send Chip a voice memo, all I have to do is slide my finger up to that little arrow pointed up. And when I do, it sends it to Chip as a voice memo. Now, Chip can either choose to keep that audio, but if he doesn't, it'll expire and clear out 2 minutes after he listened to it. Okay? Also, if I screw up and I start stuttering, like blah, 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 I can slide my finger to the left. There's a little X, and it'll cancel it out so I don't sound like a more so of a bumbling idiot to Chip Capelli. Next feature we have here, a lot of you are aware that you've always been able to send messages and little video files in iMessages. You can now send multiple. So if you want to send more than one photo, you can do them all at once. You don't have to do them one at a time. Next feature is in the built-in keyboard, we have a predictive text feature. Now, some of you are going to love this feature, and I would ironically predict that some of you are going to probably hate it. So, for example, if Chip had asked me a question, okay, the options here would be yes, no, and maybe. It does look at the text. It's not Apple looking. It's all within your iPad itself. So for those of you who have privacy concerns, don't worry about that. But it's just going to try to figure out what you're going to say. It's also great for those of you with, as Ellen DeGeneres coined the term, clumsy thumbsies. So if I have trouble typing, for whatever reason, every time I have to show how poorly I type, I always use the same word, paleontologist. Okay. So you can see here, it already figured out the word that I was trying to type, so I can just tap on that, and it will enter it for me. Now, if you do not like that feature, I do want to show you how to disable it. The way you do it is you're going to press and hold on this middle button, no matter what text it says. Press and hold and drag down. I can see Chip has figured out what I'm doing right now. So then when you've done that, if you ever want to bring it back, you see how we have this thin little white line? You can just press and hold, drag up, oops, and it comes back. Just like that. Next feature is this particular microphone. So a lot of you may be familiar with this from iOS 7, but there is a little change. And this actually you're going to see across the entire iPad. So that is your dictation button. It really only works if you're, well, it works for everything these days. But if I hit it, you'll notice there's a little change. Now, as I use the dictation feature, you will notice that I can see my words as I am speaking, whereas in the past, it would only show you these when you were finished. Period. Oh, and by the way, you can also speak punctuation, exclamation mark. So that's dictation features. Another feature is down here next to the microphone. We have this little world icon. Okay, so here's what that is. You have the ability to add multiple keyboards to your devices. So the first one we'll go over is emoji. Now, I have my own little opinions on emoji. I think it kind of brings out the 16-year-old girl in all of us. And I've noticed that since I've started saying that when people comment on the videos on YouTube, it tends to be a long string of emoji. So I think they're doing it to either play with me or something else with me. Anyway, so you can see through here, yes, we have plenty of emoji to fulfill all of your emoji needs. Am I the only one who thinks that that does not look like a tongue? Just asking. Okay. Next is if you have multiple keyboards, that little button, that icon you see here, will also switch back and forth to other keyboards. So, for example, this is one of the ones that I downloaded. This is called Swift Key. And it is similar to the Apple one, but it learns how you speak. It can also analyze your Gmail email messages and also, I believe, Facebook. So it'll kind of get an idea of how you talk and use that information to help with the predictive text here. Another one that I really like, and actually, if you'll bear with me 1 second, I'm just leaning across my desk. I actually have a stylus here. Some people like using a stylus, okay? So I just grabbed one. I have one in hand right now. Another keyboard that is this one where you can actually draw the letters on the iPad. Now, this is actually a cheap one, so I don't know how well this is going to work. And if you'll forgive me, I'm going to just delete all of that text. And so let's see how well this works. Screw it. Let me just use my finger instead. So then as I type, you'll see that down here we have some critical options here like space. I don't know how I accidentally just enabled caps lock, but anyways, that's still a pretty cool feature for people who would like something like that. So there you go. The way you get those keyboards, let's go over it. I'm going to give you a shortcut, just a really easy way to get it. Go into settings on your iPad. This is where we were a little while ago. In general settings, we're going to go down to keyboard. In keyboard, we're going to go into where it says keyboards, the first one at the top. And if you look down here, it says add new keyboard. It's just a shortcut. Okay. Oops, sorry, that's just for the... I messed that part up. My bad. That's just to get the different languages. If you actually want the other options... Sorry, I don't know why I thought that that was the feature. Right now, at least, if you go into the App Store, you'll notice here under... I want to say, if you just scroll down, it says extend your apps. You could also just search for the word keyboard, by the way. Here we have right now the very limited options. So the one that you saw, Swift Key, the one that analyzes your Gmail and Facebook information, that's this one right here. The other one that you saw is this right here. It's called My Script Stack Handwriting. Okay, that's another free one. There'll be a lot more options, you know, I'm sure in the near future. It's just right now it's all so new. They haven't really had a lot of time to develop much. Let's see. Next feature, I actually need to go back to messages here. And let's go back to the normal keyboard. Okay, is I'm going to go here into a group message. So group messages can be a bit of a pain in the past because you get looped into this conversation and then every single time someone mentions something, everyone gets texted. And it could just be a nightmare, especially if the person sending the group message doesn't really know what they're doing. So if you look up here at the top right, it says details. And you'll see right here, what I can do is I can add people mid-conversation. You can also remove people. Now, in order to remove people, there has to be more than 2 people. So if I want to remove my sister, I would just swipe from right to left. Whoosh. Get that little delete button. Tap delete. And sorry, sis, you're gone from that conversation. You can also send out your current location. I would imagine that might be good if you have a group of people and you're trying to figure out where each other is, whatever. English, not my strong arm rather. Share my location, yes, that's there. Do not disturb, you can turn that on if you want to mute the conversation. And if you didn't create the conversation, you can leave it. Very handy feature to be aware of. Let's get out of that. The next feature we're going to talk about is we're going to go here into Notification Center. So for Notification Center, you're going to go to the top of your screen and swipe down. Not Spotlight, which is mid-screen, and swipe down, but the very, very tippy top. Let's give it a second to load. Usually gives me a little more oh, there we go. So here you can see it gives you the weather information as long as you allow it in settings. That information is now coming from a different source. In the past, weather has always come from Yahoo. It's now coming from the Weather Channel. So my little joke about that is that now there's at least a 10 to 15% chance it'll be accurate. You'll see your calendar options here and also other apps that allow for shared data. So for example, LinkedIn has this is considered a widget where I can see who's viewed me recently. I chose to not add that feature. If you want to add other widgets to Notification Center, you see that edit button at the very bottom? Just tap on that. And these are the different apps that you can throw in with this. So for example, I pulled in a News Digest, which I actually really I'm not a fan of it, but I just wanted to show it. It's not pulling data for some strange reason, but maybe it's just because I just downloaded that. But there are others that you can see listed below where you can add that feature in. You can find out which ones will go in to Notification Center just from the App Store. There's a little section there for it. Let's get out of that. Another thing I want to mention, let me just do a quick thing with Chip here. Chip, would you please do me a favor and quickly text me back? Thank you. Okay, so we're going to get out of that temporarily. Oh, oops, I guess I didn't put Do Not Disturb mode on. We're going to wait for Chip to text, and I want you to watch the top of the screen. So a lot of times when you're on your iPad, you'll get a text or you'll get an email, and you'll get a little notification at the top. Now you can reply or respond to it, however, whatever method that would be. So if it's from Twitter, for example, you can retweet it right from the notification itself. So hopefully Chip will see that soon and he will text me back. He's always done it pretty well in the past. I'm trying to keep an eye on the screen while looking at my notes at the same time. While we're waiting for him, and we'll just jump back as soon as he does, I'm going to actually go into email for a moment, show you a couple new features there. So let's go into email. So the first feature I want to show you is there's a new way to delete messages. A lot of you have been aware that in the past you could tap edit, and then you get these little check boxes here, and you can go check, 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 and then hit trash at the bottom. Okay, that's always been one method. Method 2 is to actually go into the message and hit the little trash can icon up here at the top. By the way, for some of you it's going to be a trash can. For others it's going to be a box. It's a box if you use Gmail. It's a trash can if you use pretty much anything else. It's just a matter of do they define it as trash or archiving. We don't need to go into the reasons why. The new method though is, watch this. So if you swipe your finger from right to left just a little bit. Oh, hold on, Chip. Okay. So you saw that it came in at the very top. You can just pull down from that little part of the top and you can respond without having to actually leave what you're doing. So I just texted him back. Very, very simple. So there we go. Getting back to what I was talking about. So with email, you could always, oops, I don't want to show you the feature, the new feature too fast. Swipe from right to left and you get these options here like trash, flag, and more. We're going to go over more in a moment. But the new feature is if you keep swiping, it goes straight to trash. So if you just need to quickly delete it, you can just swipe from right to left and it will delete it. This brings me to something that I do want to mention, which is if you screw up, and God knows all of us do every now and then, how to undo these features. For those of you who are here live, by the way, how many people here know how to undo on an iPad? This applies to if you accidentally delete an email. Let's say you have a bunch of text selected and hit the delete button. So this would be like the equivalent on the Mac of Command Z or on a PC of Control Z. It's undo. All you actually have to do is literally shake your iPad. So left and right. There we go. Undo trash. Sure, you'll look like an idiot on the subway, but at least you get your message back. Undo. And it comes right back. Just curious to see how many people here. Yep, quite a few didn't know that feature. So that's another little thing I want to go over. Let's see. Other notification options, by the way, that you can work with. Let's say you get in like a calendar invitation. You can accept it or decline it right from the notification that comes in. The others I think I actually did already mention here. And just kind of worth mentioning again, when you're in email, if you decide to use the dictation feature here, it is going to show your text as you speak it on your iPad, which is a really handy feature because the last thing you want to do is talk for half an hour, hit done, and then realize that half of what you just said was not correctly translated. Not bad, Siri. Not bad. Except for the last word. So there we go. And it fixed it. Okay, out of email. Next feature that we're going to talk about, let's see here. Multitasking. So to multitask, you're going to double click the home button. That's the button on the front of the iPad. This is definitely, in my opinion, it's a little bit more handy in the phone, but it's also decent for the iPad. And I'm going to apologize in advance to Chip Capelli because hopefully it won't do right now what it did for one of the last classes, which is it revealed his phone number. So you'll notice that when you double click the home button, you see the other apps that are running in the background. So the different apps that I've opened over the course of this class, I can, for example, go back here into the App Store just by tapping on it, double tap the home button again, it backs up, and I can go, back and forth. But also, a new feature, we have the different people I have recently corresponded with up here at the top. So if, let's say, I was just chatting with Chip and now I want to start a FaceTime call with him, I can tap on his name. Thank God it didn't do it this time. And I can message him, FaceTime call him, or FaceTime call him, as in not video. So that's another nifty little feature. Mail, I already went over. Safari. Okay, next feature we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about Safari. So let's go in that. In the past, every time I've taught a class on the Mac or iPad and I've gone to CNN, it's like the worst, most depressing news ever. So from now on, I'm going to theonion.com. Let's keep this class happy if it ever loads. Okay, so when you're on a website, okay, and you have to kind of work with me here on this one because this is very generally speaking. Sometimes when you go to a website, you don't want the mobile version of the website to load. Like for me, this happens all the time with restaurants. I just want their phone number. I know the website. I just want the regular thing. I personally don't like the mobile version. So if you're in that kind of a situation, you don't want the mobile version, you no longer have to scroll to the bottom, look for the little button that says desktop version and tap on that and wait for the page to reload. There's a little bit of an easier way to do it. Now, to switch to the desktop version of any website, all you have to do, not every, but almost any, tap on the actual address. Okay, that'll load your bookmarks. And what you're going to do is in this little area right here, you're going to actually scroll down. And when you do that, you reveal Request Desktop Site. So if, in this case, this is probably a terrible example because it is the same version, but if this was a different kind of website, it would just immediately... Great ad, by the way. Thank you for having that load on me. That wasn't planned. But if you have that kind of situation, it's a really easy way to get to the desktop version of any website. Let's see here. Going to my notes here. Next feature I want to talk about is extensions. This is a really handy feature. So, for example, one of my favorite apps, we've talked about it in the past, we've done a couple classes on it, is Evernote. I think it's a really great way to just kind of organize your thoughts. And for me, personally, my own opinion, I like Evernote better than Microsoft OneNote. It's just, I think it's better built. But one of the things that was always a pain is that there was an extension for the Mac version of Safari, or for that matter, PC, where you could take a website and put it into Evernote, but it wasn't available on the iPad version. Now, all of those extensions, not all of them, but most of them, work the same way. So if I want to take this article and I want to save it into Evernote, all you have to do is go to the little social share icon here at the top right. Okay? And you'll notice, there it is. So I can now place this into Evernote. Another feature where this can be handy. So for those of you who maybe didn't notice it, we've added a new feature to our YouTube page where we pose a question to all of you looking for feedback. And so I put out a thing there. We've never done a class on any of the different password saving apps like 1Password or LastPass, or there's a bunch of others, RoboForm. But I said, hey, tell us what your favorite is. And one of the most common responses was 1Password. So for those of you out there who have trouble remembering passwords, 1Password now is an extension for Safari on the iPad. So if you have to log into a website, you can just tap on 1Pass. If you don't see it here, you'll see all of your different options here. Once again, you just turn the feature on, and it will insert your password. Pretty cool feature. So that's just another example of a type of extension that you can now have run within Safari. Okay, next feature. We've already talked about keyboards, so I went out of order. Next feature we're going to talk about. Let's get out of that. I believe I actually hit it here on page 2. So whenever I have an app that I just really don't use, and you can see here that they're basically all the apps that come with the iPad, I tend to put in a folder called crap. And this is one of them. There's a new app called Tips. So for those of you who just want to learn a little bit about your iPad. Oh, for a minute there, I thought I was getting a text message and it was the video here. I'm like, I don't know anyone by that name. Clearly, I haven't had enough coffee this morning. So with this, it'll just give you like these little tips. You can slide through them and it'll just show you how to do basically everything that I've just showed you today. So that's that. That's the new Tips app. So that basically, I'm just going through my notes here. That does it that's the main new features that you're going to find here in iOS 8. It's pretty cool. Quick thing I just want to reiterate, I've e-blasted this out to all of our members. If you have an iPhone 4S, I really don't recommend going to iOS 8. It just really runs poorly. It's very, very slow. You have an older piece of hardware trying to run new technology. It doesn't tend to keep up well. That being said, the iPad 2 which is the lowest end model iPad that will go to iOS 8, seems to do okay. Does it run it as well as an iPad Air? No. Does it run it okay? Yeah, it's acceptable. I would say probably go for it. So I hope you've enjoyed this class. For those of you who maybe are watching this video right now on YouTube, I hope you will check out our website. PC Classes Online is a free public service. We do it because we love it, and we basically operate based on donations. If anyone cares to leave a tip, you're more than welcome to do so via our website, which can be contributed either via PayPal or GoFundMe. This is David A. Cox. I hope you'll check out our site and subscribe to our YouTube page. We have tons of classes that we release all the time. For the people who are here live right now, all of you stick around, and I will be sure to answer all of your little questions, as well as share with you the story that I promised at the very beginning of this class before we were recording. I have a favorite story about Surrey gone wrong during a live class. It's kind of a funny little story. If PC Classes Online ever gets on the Ellen DeGeneres show, I will share that story. Just make sure they have the censor button ready. This is David A. Cox. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.